Welcome to the lecture series Programming in C. In this lecture series, we will first learn about the first module as History of C. In this module, we will be looking into the introduction about the C programming and history of C, how C has evolved from its nature and importance of C, how far C has reached the programming development, and we will also focus on the structure of a C program, how the structure will be, how the notations has to be followed. On the introduction part, C is a general purpose high level procedural language. Generally, we will be assume that we are giving some instructions to computer, saying that, hi computer, please do addition of 3 plus 2. It will not be able to understand what instruction we are giving to the computer. So, we need some sort of language which will serve as the interpretation between the human language and the computer language. The computer language can be only understandable if it is in the form of zeros and ones, but our language will be able to be understandable in the form of an English language. So, we need a translator or we need an interpreter to convert the language what we are speaking into the language which the computer is able to understand. So, that is why we are going for the high level languages. C is one of the high level languages which will make us ease of understanding our own language, and then that will be converted to the language that the compiler or the computer is able to understand. It is actually developed in 1972 by the computer scientist Dennis M. Ritchie at the Bell Laboratories when he was developing the Unix operating system. And also now C is used widely in developing operating systems, system softwares, and many more high performance applications. On focusing the history of C, ALGOL was the first language which was introduced in 1958, and it was made as published one in 1960, which is named as algorithmic language, which is specifically meant for doing calculations, arithmetic calculations. And BCPL, basic combined programming language, has been introduced in 1967, which is actually meant for computing. Some sort of basic computing operations can be performed by BCPL, but then B programming was introduced in 1917, which was actually introduced as a typeless programming language which does not be able to differentiate the data types. Say for instance, if it is going to be a numeric value, the data type which is used for representing the numerical value will be either integer or a floating point value. Whereas, if it is going to be a character oriented value, it could be represented as either a char or a string type variable or value. But that differentiation, that distinction was not being given by B programming language. So, which was not able to handle different types of data. So, then in 1972, C has been introduced as a combination of BCPL plus the data types of B programming. And then Ritchie and Cunningham put together their efforts has been standardized as C programming language in 1978 and was standardized by ANSI, which is American National Standard Institute, which has given the standard to C language. That is why we are now able to use C as a standardized programming language. And focusing on the importance of C, we would be experiencing the operating system level or the development of the operating system, compilers, interpreters, assemblers have been developed or have been done through C language. Unix was the best example of the operating system which was completely developed by C language, and C is also a successor of B language, which was introduced in the early 1970s. Today, C is most widely used and it is a popular programming language, and I want to insist one point that C is the only language which can talk to a hardware through its programming interface. So, in case if we are going to have a new type of hardware in the market, we will be able to develop C programs to interface with the hardware. So, that is the reason that recently the Internet of Things have been developed because of the applications which is dependent on C structure. So, that is a reason that still, even though it is introduced in 1970s, still now we are using and we are applying C in most of the applications and most of the system software development. We know that lot of programming languages are introduced and some of the programming languages are not in existence. And the popularity of C is just because that we are still able to develop Linux operating system, RDBMS, SQL, MySQL softwares, which is all written on the basis of C language only. So, we should be able to perceive C and we should be able to feel that what is the importance of learning C as a programming language. So, this is going to serve as a basic programming language for any other languages to learn. If one person is a master in C language, obviously the other languages can be self-experienced and self-learned. We will also look into the various applications of C. So, generally C language is used to create operating systems, which is going to serve as the heart of a processor. Supposing if you are having a computer, the computer's processor will be processed or will be given tasks based on the operating system's instructions. C is used to develop those operating systems. And language compilers, as we have seen the example before, right. Supposing if we want to talk to the computer which can understand only binary language, obviously we need some sort of translators or some sort of interpreters to help us understand what the computer is giving us the instruction and what the instructions we are giving to the computer. So, on that basis compilers are the one which will serve as a interpreter, I mean the bridge between the human language and the computer language. So, C is used for developing such kind of language compilers. And then system softwares. System softwares are the programming modules which will help us do different tasks in with respect to the operating systems. Assemblers. Generally in a computer, the instructions will be given in the form of assembly mnemonic codes. So, the assembly mnemonic codes will be converted to binary language with the help of assemblers. C is also used to develop assemblers. Interpreters are also similar to compilers, but there are some distinctions between the compilers and the interpreters. Compilers will take the whole program and it will convert it into binary language and then it starts executing. Whereas interpreters will take instruction by instruction from the program, it will convert it into its binary language format or the machine language which the computer can understand, and then it is able to execute the instructions one by one. So, that is the difference between the compilers and the interpreters. Of course, C is able to develop both compilers and interpreters. Text editors, we are all used to the MS Microsoft's Word application, which is a popular text editor. So, such kind of text editor, if we want to customize, we can develop those text editor using C language. Network drivers, this is most important thing because right now or in future we may need to do lot of network related programs like web programming, web application development, mobile programming, Android application development. So, for such things we need network drivers to interface our computer or the desktop machine to those network infrastructure. So, for that again C will be helping us to write code for creating the network drivers. And databases will again serve as one of the important applications of C, because we wherever or whichever the type of application we apply, we may need databases as a support for accessing, for processing, and for giving us the appropriate output. So, in those case C is a programming language which will give interface to the databases also. I think on learning the importance of C language and its applications, we would be able to realize what actually the strength of C language and in what ways the C language can help us in developing an application which is going to be the need of the hour. So, obviously, if one is able to develop C programs, possibly the development or the learning in the computer field which would be very easier in whatever be the language you want to, or whatever be the type of application you want to develop. So, let us learn about the structure of a C program. So, generally if people ask you what is a C program and what is going to be there in the C program, we should be in a position to learn certain things which is going to serve as the building blocks of a C program. Preprocessor commands, functions, variables, statement and expressions, comments. These are going to be the building blocks or the components of a C program. So, we will be focusing on every component in detail in this lecture series, and of course, we will be writing or will be developing programs on these on using these components. So, generally if we are given a problem statement, we will have to write it or we will have to compose it as an algorithm. So, an algorithm will require at least 5 statement types: input statement, output statement, arithmetic calculations, selection statements, and repetition modules. So, why this is required? Say for instance, if we are given a task to compute the addition of two numeric values, we need to get those two numeric values as input. So, those two numeric values we can get it as input, and we need to do the arithmetic calculations using arithmetic statements, expressions, and the calculation operators, and we will be arriving at a result. So, that will serve as the output statement. We are supposed to display that as a result. So, that could be handled by the output statement. The selection statement will be used in case if there is going to be any criteria based condition checking. Say for instance, I want to allow the students who are having the age more than 18 only. If the application requirement is that, we will be able to check the criteria whether the student's age is more than 18 with the help of the selection statements. And the repetition statements will allow us to do some task iteratively in a repetitive manner. Say for instance, I want to apply the mark calculation for a set of 60 students in a class. So, I will be able to apply the repetition statement in order to do the task repeatedly for 60 students. So, these are all the basic statements which are going to be used or applied in a C program. So, what we are able to see in the slide is a structure of a C program which starts with hash symbol. The hash symbol is the preprocessor directive. The preprocessor directive will help us include the library functions. In case if we want to use the statements of C, we need to have access to the library functions. The library functions will be available in the form of header files. The file with extension .h, it is called the header file. So, you can see in the slide that I have given the first statement to be hash include stdio.h in angular brackets. So, if I give it in angular brackets, it means that the library functions from the header file standard IO, that is why it is in short named as stdio.h, and include is again a keyword which is used to include the library functions with respect to standard input output operations. So, in this program we have given one output statement called printf. The printf is going to print something on the monitor. So, in the example I have given hello world as a string to be displayed on the screen. So, the printf statement is going to be serving as the output statement according to this particular program. So, for including or for using that output statement, we need to have the corresponding header file, because printf is a library function with respect to input output operations. So, for doing or for including the output statement or output library function, I need to have the corresponding header file included in my program. In case if you are having some mathematical operations in your program, then you need to include the corresponding header file as math.h. So, here in this small program you can see with only two statements, printf and return statement. The return statement is given here because the main is the function which will be invoked as the first function whenever a program starts. It means that simply whenever I execute this program, the compiler will go in search of the keyword main, M-A-I-N. So, when there is a main, the compiler will understand that that is the place where the program execution starts. So, when I give int main, it understands that that is where the program execution starts, and the program, the main function is included with curly brackets or braces. So, inside which the printf statement is a first statement which gets executed as a first statement, and once it is done, return 0. Return 0 return statement is going to give control to the program or to the editor which tries to execute this program, and this the value which is returned by the function will be identified with the data type int in the main function. So, this is what is the structure of a C program. From this program we can understand that the first part of the program outside the main or above the main should have the list of header files or the preprocessor directives. Some of the preprocessor directives are hash include, hash define, and the program actually starts from the main function, and it starts executing the statements inside the main function. When it encounters a closing braces, the compiler understands that the program is over. So, once it is over, the compiler will be able to give the output of the program. Now, let us take a small example. I have been asked to do a smaller task to calculate the simple interest of a loan. So, as a first step, I should be able to frame the steps of execution as an algorithm. So, as a first step, I need to understand the requirement. My requirement is to develop a program that is going to calculate the simple interest. So, the first task is I should print on the monitor screen a brief description of the program's purpose. That is going to be my first task. What for this program is? This program is for printing the simple interest. So, that purpose has to be displayed on the monitor as a first step. The second step is I should prompt for getting the values of principal, the duration and the rate of interest using the terminal keyboard. So, for which I need a input statement. And third step is I need to calculate the simple interest using the corresponding formula. So, that will serve as the third step, which needs the arithmetic calculations either in the form of functions or in the form of operations. And the fourth step is to display the or print the simple interest value. So, in case if we are asked to write the program for this given task, let us see how we can write it. So, in the screen you can see the simple interest calculation program, in which the first statement is a comment statement. The comment statements are non-executable statements. It means there is no compiler intervention in executing the first statement, which is enclosed within the / symbol. And I now am inserting the header file which is required for the library function execution, which is stdio.h, as we have seen in the structure of the C program. And as a first step, I need to now get the principal amount, time in years from the user. Also, the rate of interest, which is going to be a constant value at the particular time of interest calculation. So, let us make it as fixed. So, I am using the keyword const, which will denote that, which will determine that rate of interest is a constant value, which is going to be 10%. I have assumed that to be 10%. It is up to the bank to fix the interest. So, whatever be the interest which they are fixing up, let us have it as a fixed rate. So, I am just making it as const. So, instead of 10%, I am just making it as 0.10, and I am getting the principal amount, for which I am declaring that as a floating point value because it is an amount representation. And the time duration, I am just reading or getting it as an integer value because it is going to be a numerical value, and it is going to be a value which is going to be considered as integer. So, for integer value, it can be a number of years. So, it can be 2 years, 5 years, whatever be the tenure of the loan. So, that could be considered as the number of years. Then I am just calculating the simple interest by using the formula principal into number of years into rate of interest divided by 100, that is PNR by 100, and that simple interest would have to be displayed as an output. So, what we are doing? We are applying the printf statement which we have already encountered and which is used for displaying the simple interest value. Since it is in the form of a floating point value, that is a real value or an amount, we are just displaying that using the symbol %f, which is used to denote that it is a floating point value. Anyway, in the subsequent lectures, we will be focusing more on the ways of data types and in what are all the ways the data types could be handled. On summarizing the first module of the lecture series in programming in C, we have seen about the introduction of C programming, and we have learnt about the history of C and the applications, how strong that C language is. Even now we are using that for developing our own applications and customizing the application according to the requirements. And we have also learnt about the importance of C. It was introduced in the 1960s, and even now in 2024 also we are still using, we are still learning, we want to learn C language. The reason behind the existence of C language, it's one of the important factor is still now C language is the one which can talk to the hardware. Anyway, even if it is going to be a new type of hardware also, we will be able to interface it with the help of C programming. That is the reason we are even now learning about C language. So, that itself shows the importance of C and the importance of learning the C as a course. Then structure of a C program, we have seen one small example which includes printing an hello world as a string, and also we have seen how to construct a C program based on the requirement. If a particular requirement is given, how to convert the requirement to algorithm and how the algorithm can be converted to a C program. Hope you are able to understand the things in a sequential way, and I hope that you might have enjoyed learning C. So, in future sessions also we will again learn more on C, and we will be able to enjoy C programming. Thank you so much.